ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nihilist Wrestling Episode 5. I am your host, Ash Manson. I'm joined here today by my cat Zoe, who is just out of frame here. I didn't feel like kicking her out of the room when recording because I'd been traveling and haven't seen her an awful lot today, and figured she might be a value add to my presentation, so if she joins us today, enjoy that. But yeah, this is an episode I've wanted to record for a long time. I've been thinking about it all week while I was on the road. I said when I started this podcast in episode 1, we're going to talk about the ways that pro wrestling intersects with culture. And that's one of the things I would like to distinguish this podcast from, the trillions of other pro wrestling related podcasts. So yeah, we're going to talk about some topics that some might consider to be a little bit loaded, but I think it's things that need to be talked about. So let's get right into it. We're going to talk about black excellence in professional wrestling. And yeah, I've seen myself in the mirror lately. I know I am not a perfect vessel for this message, but I strongly feel like something should not have to personally affect you in order for you to care about it. So I just, and some people in this crazy social climate might label me woke, as if it is some sort of slur for talking about this. But I assure you that I have no agenda other than I recognize certain patterns from the past, and I appreciate everything that I am about to mention. And we're going to get this conversation started off with Swerve Strickland's win over Konosuke Takeshita on Dynamite to become the #1 contender for AEW Dynasty. You see, I'm repping Swerve right now. I have been a big fan of Swerve Strickland since I saw him in Evolve many years ago. And Swerve said also, I believe it was during like a vignette that aired during Dynamite, I could be wrong, that it's not simply about him, that it's greater than him, and it's about history, and more specifically, it's about black history. He wants to be the first ever African-American AEW World Champion. But really, it cuts deeper than just AEW, because when you think about the way that black athletes have been portrayed in pro wrestling historically, there have been no shortage of talented black wrestlers. But there has been a shortage of black world champions. And I mean, you can argue, yes, The Rock is one of the greatest wrestlers to ever step foot in a ring, but this isn't to detract from his blackness in any way. That would be absurd for me to do, but he was not presented in an explicitly black way on television. You can name Booker T. And Booker T had a run as WCW World Champion, of course. He had a run as World Heavyweight Champion, but he was never like the guy in WCW or WWE. You think of Kofi Kingston and Big E, who had the world title reigns for a cup of coffee. As much as we wanted to see it, we were just dying to see both Kofi and Big E become champion, and Kofi gets squashed by Brock Lesnar in a matter of seconds. And I don't remember exactly how Big E's title reign ended, but I remember it was very brief, and it did not feel like the massive thing that it should have. And the fact of the matter is, there have been a number of black athletes that have had a lot of success in WWE, but I can't truthfully say that, other than The Rock that we just talked about, that WWE has ever really made a black man their guy. Who is the guy right now? You can argue it's Roman Reigns, you can argue that it's Cody Rhodes, but, it's not Kofi Kingston, it's not R-Truth, it's not Bobby Lashley. And I know it's it's like you might say, well, why do you want to bring race into it? Well, think about what I said in the last couple of videos. Like, I am happy to see the Judgment Day and the House of Black on pro wrestling television because I feel like there has been a lack of representation for like gothic heavy metal culture in wrestling since probably the Attitude Era. And I fully understand that that is a privileged position to hold. Like, I want to see things relating to my specific subculture. Imagine like not seeing adequate representation for like an immutable characteristic such as the color of your skin. And I saw some people like reacting to the end of SmackDown when Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi were all standing there pointing at the WrestleMania sign and like how powerful of an image that was, and more importantly, how it made certain people feel and just, made them feel seen on a level that maybe wrestling has fallen short of in the past. And that is partially why I'm so excited about Swerve Strickland's upcoming championship match with Samoa Joe, because not only do I hope that Swerve wins, but I really want to see Swerve Strickland be given the keys to the kingdom. Like, I want to see his name on all the billboards, headlining all the pay-per-views, doing all the media. Like, I feel like Swerve has everything it takes to be the face of AEW. And in this particular instance, like, I realistically think that it could happen. And that is going to mean, like, so much to some people. And while, again, I am a white man, it doesn't personally affect me in that way. I appreciate that it is going to mean so much to some people that just haven't seen something like that happen before. Since arguably, if, obviously The Rock, but since then maybe Ron Simmons, and that was like in WCW in the early 90s. Like, it's so important that certain people be able to see themselves in what is presented on television. And Swerve is just, he is AEW's vessel to do so. He is the man for the job. I'm just very excited to see it happen. But it's not just Swerve. Like, Swerve, again, he's like one of my favorite active wrestlers going right now, but I got two other favorites, and just like two others that I've like really been behind the past couple of years, and that's Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. And it was recently announced that they are going to be the main event of NXT Stand and Deliver. And that is NXT's biggest event of the year. And that is huge. Especially since, like, you know what I keep on saying about The Rock? And don't misconstrue me again. The Rock is a black man, for sure. But he is, like, more of his presentation on television is more of an ode to his Samoan heritage. And Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes are very explicitly black in their presentation. And, like, they had all those barbershop segments and all that. And I think that it was tremendous, like, for them to, to be their authentic self, but also like to get us to invest in them. And the great thing about Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams is like I was such a big fan of Trick Mello Gang. I never wanted to see them feud. And the reason why I never wanted to see them feud was because, like, I thought Mello and Trick were such a great, like, representation of, like, just true friendship. And that's just not something that you see very much in wrestling. Like, I want to give an example as to what I'm talking about. Like, Britt Baker, former AEW Women's Champion, right? She has her run, she loses her title, and then some amount of time, Jamie Hayter wins the AEW Women's Championship, right? Everyone on the internet is just like, when's Britt gonna turn on Jamie? When's it gonna happen? And Britt keeps clapping back at people on the internet saying, like, why would I do that to my friend? Like, what kind of relationship do you have with your friends that you think this is how it should operate? And I know that we're in the world of pro wrestling, so we're talking about conflict just inherently, right? But like, Mello was clearly like the number one guy, right? Like originally he was the North American champion, eventually he became the NXT champion, and Trick was just in his corner, like cheering for him all the entire time, like 100% having his back, despite the fact that, I mean, like, Trick's a big guy, like fucking sculpted out of granite. He's got a, just phenomenal on the microphone, and he definitely like improved to the point where he can hang with the very best of them in the ring. And you got someone like that in the corner of the champion. It just didn't seem like something didn't compute here. And they had that segment with like Trick Mello. They saw John Cena backstage, and once Mello went away, Trick asked John, like, hey, when did you know that it's your time? So it almost kind of seemed like, Trick was maybe going to be the one to maybe not turn on Mello, but at least, be like, tell him, hey, we need to go our separate ways. And then eventually, Trick, and I think this might have happened before then, maybe before or after. I don't have the greatest memory in the world, but I remember like Trick kind of having a heart to heart with Mello one time and saying like, "Hey, I just need you to know that I appreciate you, but I got something to prove. I need to go out there and do things on my own because I don't want to be looked at like as a sidekick." And then Mello's like, "I never saw you as a sidekick." And Trick is like, "I know, but they do." And then Trick went on an absolute tear, and like if Mello would have stood behind him and like been his corner man in his quest to win the NXT championship, that would have felt really good, right? That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see Trick win the title and Mello be there for him. And because it's just like such a healthy example, especially like male friends don't support each other the way that they should sometimes. So I wanted to see that. But again, we're talking about pro wrestling. They teased for months like Trick and Mello split. But when it finally happened, it felt like a dagger. Like when Mello like did that little chop block on Trick, I was just like, no, it fucking stung. I gotta say, like it really stung. It was almost like when Roman like turned on Sami Zayn level of like, how dare you, but partially just because I'm still like such a big fan of Mello, and I can't root against him, but I also really like Trick, and the fact that these two talented men, these two talented black men are going to get the opportunity to main event Stand and Deliver, I think that's step one, because both of these men, I believe, have everything it takes to main event WrestleMania. Like, again, I said, was it 2 weeks ago now, that Dominic Mysterio is the future of WWE? Well, he's not it. Like, Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams are also the future of WWE. Both of them are going to be world champions. I hope someday we're going to see them as tag team champions if they can reconcile, but they're going to be draped in gold, and I can't wait to see the amount of success they're going to have. I think they're both 29, maybe Mello's 30 by now. They got plenty of years left in the business, so you have an opportunity to really do something special, because like Swerve Strickland and AEW, I absolutely think he's going to win. He's going to win the AEW World Championship. Melo's already been NXT champion. I think he's a future WWE champion. Trick is absolutely going to win that NXT title. Then, hell, he'll probably be a future WWE champion too. But just the thing with it all, and just going back to like representation, right? Like, but I don't want to get too explicitly political here, but I'll just say that I voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and was very disappointed in the job he did and couldn't do so again in 2012. And I was so disappointed with him on a political level that I thought it was peculiar that some of my friends were still supporting him. More specifically, some of my black friends were still supporting him, right? And I had it explained to me, and I didn't fully understand at the time, but you learn and you grow that it meant a lot to them just to see that a black man can become president of the United States. And while I'm still not a huge fan of I don't think that Obama did enough to fight for what he believed in. He's ostensibly on my side, so to speak, but I thought he was a little too corporate, a little too centrist. Again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds. I just wanted to kind of differentiate myself from the typical white Obama hater, because it wasn't any of that, I promise you. I have came to appreciate on a greater level just how much representation means. So I think that both WWE and AEW are on the road to doing something truly special. And you could see it, again, at the end of SmackDown. Jade Cargill, Naomi, Bianca Belair, 3 strong, powerful black women, pointing at that WrestleMania sign, that's an iconic image just from yesterday, and I just know people are going to be referencing it years from now. So history is being made in a lot of ways. We had the women's revolution or evolution, whatever we're calling it. It's time for other kinds of people to get their moment in the sun, and yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. But it makes me happy for the future of wrestling in general. Speaking of the future of wrestling, did you guys see Monday Night Raw this week? Oh my God! So there was that promo between Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk, and the best thing about that promo, all 3 of them just knocked it out of the park. But the best thing about it to me is it was just so clearly not scripted. I can't remember exactly what the comment was in reference to, but there was kind of an off-color comment, and Drew McIntyre picks up the microphone and says, "That's not PG, brother." And because the promo didn't feel super PG, but more specifically, it didn't feel like it was a product of this overproduced PG era of WWE. It's not so much just the rating that has been detrimental to WWE's product for so long. I don't know specifically, but I think WCW might have been PG back in the day. Either that, or it just they never really cussed a ton in WCW. There was blood on occasion, but I don't think it was too gory. I don't think it was too explicitly violent. I think you can put out a PG rated product and still have it be good. But the main problem that WWE has had in the past over 15 years, maybe more about 20, is that it just felt so formulaic and overproduced and super polished, and it just we're in the business of grown men fighting each other, but it just seemed like so, I don't know, just the words I just said, just like polished, scripted. You go to a live WWE show, and it's kind of weird because you're like it's so obvious when they're on commercial, right? They go to the ring, they have the entrance, and then the lights go dark, and then they play like a whole bunch of like really kind of upbeat promo ads for the company and stuff like that, and the wrestlers just sitting there awkwardly in the ring while they're on commercial and all that, and you see the same like few ads and video packages, and it's just like I just say that to say that like everything is just so strictly by the books. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of room for creative freedom, or like there has been. But that promo between McIntyre, Rollins, and CM Punk, like they were out there conducting some good business for sure. And it really seems like historically, the best content in wrestling was produced by giving the best wrestlers a bullet point list of what you need them to accomplish, the points you're trying to sell, and just let them go out there and do their thing. And that might be back. They're calling this time in wrestling, at least some people on the internet, who knows if it will catch on. Maybe we won't even know until it's past. But some people are calling it the Renaissance era. The Renaissance era. And I like that name personally because it does feel like a renaissance in pro wrestling, because both WWE and AEW are like absolutely killing it now. And not just that, like WrestleMania is going to be, like, box office wise, WrestleMania 40 is going to be the biggest WrestleMania of all time. It probably won't be the best, but by all the corporate and monetary metrics, it's going to be the biggest. But not just that, but it just feels like a big deal. It feels like a big deal in a way that it hasn't felt like a big deal in a really long time. Like, pro wrestling was very big in like the late 90s into the early 2000s, and then it kind of became a niche passion. And generally speaking, if I told people that I was into pro wrestling, they would tell me that, oh yeah, they loved it back when it was Stone Cold, The Rock, and DX, and the NWO, and Sting, and all that. But they stopped watching after that. Just wrestling, like The Rock said wrestling's cool again. It's starting to feel that way. At least it's starting to feel like more of a big deal again. And while we're on the subject of The Rock, like, The Rock beating the shit out of Cody Rhodes at the end of Raw, he busted him open, and not only did they not pan the camera away, when they replayed this on SmackDown, they didn't make the footage black and white to obscure the blood, but they zoomed right in on Cody bleeding. And then The Rock said, "This is what happens when you fuck with the final boss." And they edited it out on television, but you could very explicitly read his lips. And there was a report going around that saying TKO wishes The Rock was a better ambassador for their PG product, and The Rock quote tweeted it and said, "This report is bullshit." The Rock has been instrumental in bringing a lot of the edge back into wrestling. But it's not just explicitly the profanity and the blood and the violence, although those things are all great and I love to see it in pro wrestling. It's just the creative freedom, when you let guys go out there and riff off each other and just kind of feel the crowd and all that, and just really be themselves and not have to recite a predetermined script. That is truly, like I just said, that is when the magic is made. And the fact that there's been some little subtle like changes in appearance to Monday Night Raw. Like now they have like a black background over the red letters and all that, and I think that looks pretty sharp. They changed the Titantron area up a little bit. But also, and I've talked about this before, the Netflix deal, where they might not have to, like, so explicitly abide by television rules. There's another thing, and again, I've talked about this before, but it all ties together. Just like a couple of years ago, WWE started saying the word wrestling again. And that was so huge because you weren't allowed to say wrestling. This is sports entertainment. And sports entertainment was such a dirty term to us, like, hardcore wrestling fans, that, like, Chris Jericho was able to use that term to, like, get heat when he was in the Jericho Appreciation Society. So they started saying wrestling again, right? But there's been little things that this might fly under the radar for some people, but me looking at it, like, all of a sudden, not only do you hear the word wrestling, and again, that's been a few years, but then there's the blood, there's the profanity, there's a little bit more creative freedom, but they acknowledge Sting on air, and they mentioned that he had a match last night on Monday Night Raw. Well, WWE didn't have a show on Sunday. And some fans are not going to have any clue what they're talking about, but some of us know. Hi, Zoe. I can see Zoe there in the shot. Hi, little baby. Anyway, on to what I'm saying. Also, you're seeing Edge in some of the, like, little ads that they play throughout the show. You're seeing Chris Jericho. You're seeing Bryan Danielson. Like, these guys don't work for WWE anymore. And while it wasn't, like, super rare to see, like, a non-WWE wrestler in footage, but you're seeing, like, them being very prominently featured in, like, promotional material that WWE is airing. They were talking about Edge, Christian, the Dudley Boys, and the Hardys. Well, think about it. Edge, Christian, and the Hardys are all under contract to AEW, and the Dudleys, I think they're free agents at the moment, but they're not WWE guys. And it actually, as a fan, that to me, like, it strikes me as a goodwill gesture, because, like, WWE is acknowledging that pro wrestling exists outside of their company. That's not something they have done since, like, the WCW days, and the reason they were doing it during the WCW days is because it was during the time that WCW was actually the number one wrestling promotion out there. They felt like, the philosophy is, if you're number two, you throw everything you got at number one. But if you're number one, number two doesn't exist. Well, WWF was number two for a while, so they would take shots at WCW. But this isn't shots. This is just like ignoring the like conventional wisdom that when you're number one, number two doesn't exist, because they're not going to hurt their product by occasionally acknowledging that Edge and Bryan Danielson exist. For example, like, they should be able to celebrate a lot of the great things that people like that have done on WWE programming, and I hope this, like, opens up the door for potentially some other things. Like, I want to see, for example, Dustin Goldust Rhodes inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. I know, like, some years ago they were able to induct Billy Gunn, well, as a part of DX, into the Hall of Fame. That was around when AEW was first starting up, so, maybe that wasn't as big of a deal. And, like, Ric Flair was allowed to be inducted, I believe, as a part of the Four Horsemen when he was with TNA and all that. But Triple H was hesitant to use the term Forbidden Door. He thought it was, like, cliche or cheesy. He insulted it in some way. And that's not exactly what's happening, because you're only really seeing WWE talent like on WWE shows. They have let a couple of their people work other shows. Shinsuke Nakamura got to work Great Muda's retirement show. I think Shayna Baszler is doing Bloodsport. Like, none of that is ever going to hurt WWE. I think that WWE is going to be the number one pro wrestling promotion until the day I die. Most likely. I would love to see AEW overtake them, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm happy to see them realize that. I think they've always realized it, but just understand that, mentioning things that happen outside of the scope of your program is totally fine. And to fans like me, it really means a lot. So, you know what? This is all probably part of this new philosophy in the Renaissance era. Maybe, I just gotta see, how WrestleMania plays out, and just to see, what the Renaissance era really looks like. Because, I know Triple H has been the head of creative for a while now, but, my understanding is that for a while it was kind of a tug of war between Triple H and Vince, and while Triple H was the head of creative, Vince had the final say, or Bruce Pritchard was there to act as an avatar for Vince, as Ronda Rousey said. It really feels like Triple H has full control, he is steering the ship right now, because these kinds of changes that we're seeing just, I don't think would have happened under a Vince McMahon-controlled WWE, and it makes me feel as a more explicitly pro-wrestling fan, I'm not as much of a sports entertainment guy, I am a pro-wrestling fan, I feel more seen by WWE than I have in the past, and I always say, I'm not, at my heart, I'm not a WWE guy. I grew up a WCW fan when TNA, in post 2002, especially when they started being on TV. I preferred TNA for a very large chunk of their existence. I prefer AEW, generally speaking, over WWE, but. I don't subscribe to tribalism. If it's wrestling, I love it. I was just at a Major League Wrestling show, my first MLW show, either watching or attending, and it was amazing. WWE is making me feel better as a explicitly professional wrestling fan supporting their product. So, if that's what the Renaissance era is about, I am so here for it. I am along for the ride, and I can't wait to see what happens next. So yeah, when I started the show, I didn't really know what my sign-off was going to be at the end of my videos, so I was just doing the generic "let's see you next time" on Nihilist Wrestling, and we just cut right there. And now that I found it, I can't believe I didn't think of this right away. And to be clear, I don't feel worthy of wielding this phrase, but I'm not about to let it die. So, you know what? Until next time, thank you for watching Nihilist Wrestling. Revel in what you are.